On Life, Death, and Beyond, I'm honored to welcome Mitch Shirley. Mitch has served with the spirit world for nearly 3 decades, sharing a deep understanding that death is not an end, but a continuation. His journey into mediumship began in childhood through an early awareness of spirit and later fully unfolded as he developed his innate gifts in adulthood. Alongside his wife, Kathryn, Mitch is a certified advanced grief recovery specialist and blends mediumship with grief support work and helps others to develop their innate abilities through spiritual assessment, mediumship psychic readings, workshops, and grief cafes, creating compassionate spaces for healing, understanding, and connection for those navigating loss. You can find Mitch at thesoultrust.com and other social media platforms such as Facebook. Welcome, Mitch. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You're welcome. And just so people can get to know a little bit about you, can you give us a little bit about where you're located, your background, and what is it that you do, or what brought you to mediumship?
Okay. Well, I'm located in the middle, basically, of England, not specifically the UK, but yes, in England, not far in between places that you will have heard of, Manchester and Birmingham. So they're about 50 miles either side of me. So we're quite central. And when I think of it's interesting when I reflect upon what my earlier experiences were, because I have a far greater understanding now to what I did then as a child. And in particular, as a child, the one thing that I was, funnily enough, as I am now, very much aware was of a presence of power and energy that was very much almost like a cloak around my shoulders and across the back of me and up onto my head. And as a child, that what I didn't realize when where we lived, there used to be areas where you'd have to cross and there'd be no lighting or anything. And so obviously as a small child, I'd sort of try and run across there as quickly as possible because it would be quite frightening. But what I didn't realize that I was doing then was I was actually using my sensitivity and actually feeling and sensing what was behind me, not necessarily looking with my physical eyes. And I also had an awful lot of deja vu incidents in particular, or I just knew things were going to happen and to get out of the way of things and not to be involved with things. And it was, as a young child, not having any reference point necessarily within my family. Subsequent to that, I've learned many things about my mum's side in particular, and I understand where the bloodline of mediumship has come. And the reason why I use that term bloodline is I've read there was a wonderful, incredible medium called Estelle Roberts, and her guide, known by the name of Red Cloud, is often referred to and spoke about the bloodlines that through the history of this physical earth, that there have been bloodlines of mediums and mediumship that has passed through this earth. And one of the amusing, I like the tone of this particular guy, but he has a way of saying that one of the things that people complain about is there aren't enough mediums. Well, if you hadn't drowned them all and burnt them at the stake, there'd be a hell of a lot more knocking about now. And I laugh about that, but it is in different ways that still pervades today. So yeah, as a child, very much scared in a sense of this presence and not understanding it. And then years go on and nothing in particular happened as a younger child, but in my sort of teenage years. And then I met my wife, and little did I know, but as we very quickly decided that we wished to commit to one another, having only been together sort of 6, 7 weeks, and I asked her to marry me. I just thought this is the person that I want to be with. And we are now 38 years down the track. We've actually just gone 40 years of actually being together this Christmas. And little did I know, but by design or by surprise, it depends where you're actually sitting. Her family were spiritualists, and her maternal grandfather was a working medium and also the president of a local church. And he sat in developments with a incredible medium, Gordon Higginson, who is well known as the evidence and proof that he gave was incredible, and also his mum was the circle leader. So she was an incredible healer, medium, and couldn't have wished to get any better tutelage for anybody. And so that side of things, Kath then started to say in her early 20s, oh, I'm quite interested in going back to the church once we become married, and I'm in because she used to attend the church quite regular. And I was like, yeah, okay, you go back, do what you want if that's what you want to do, no issue. But I'm not interested. I don't want to know. And it's like, right. And at that time, I was played rugby, and was making my way into the first team, which demanded a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of commitment, as well as I worked. I was a shift worker then on the steelworks, and so I was like, don't want to know, just not interested. And over the course of time, every Sunday when she'd been to church and she'd entered into a circle, and she would come back and she'd go, I'm aware of this, and I've got this, and I had a particular person who I knew who'd been murdered
Mm.
some quite a few years earlier, and she gave me evidence that I didn't know and couldn't qualify. But a few years later, we actually qualified it with somebody who was on the detectives within the police force, and we said, well, because he lost his thumb, the tops of his thumbs, because he was garroted. And they went, who told you that?
Wow.
And Kath's like, why? He says, well, that information's never been released.
Hmm.
It's never been put on the press. It's never nothing, this, that, and the other, because the murderer or murderers were never found. And so that then prompted me, and we started to have a home circle, and then I went into development, and for me, because the time was right, and also with the understanding of the spirit world, they knew that the type of person that I am, that I wouldn't be prepared to just sit about and wait and wait and wait and just work at it, work at it, work at it. It's got to be something quite quick. So, despite being incredibly skeptic, the biggest one that I've ever known, on lots of things, very dismissive, I went, okay, I'll give it a go. And that's continued in the work and how I work. And I followed it through. And within 18 months from going into the church, I was actually taking church services. And then I went to work in Switzerland with a gentleman called Paul Jacobs, who was president of the church, who's a world-renowned medium, incredible medium. and wonderful friend, been a friend of ours for 30 years. And yeah, I mean, we're about 30 years now that I've been working with and developing on that aspect of mediumship. And since then, I've worked different countries, traveled, worked all over the UK and Ireland. Sorry, not Ireland, that's a lie, UK, for the working within churches and centres and things like that, and demonstrating and theatres and things like that. So yeah, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Four children in between, starting as well, and juggling all that, and also Kath's development happened once her development was very quick, but she had the twins in between me starting. She started, I then started. She had the twins, I put everything on hold, and then
Right.
and then once within a year of the twins being born, she was actually working out, and so we would do work a lot together. And I find that when we are both communicating with the same contact, doing what we refer to as a dual link or a double link, the the level of information is of a much higher grade and a much varied grade because we're two different people,
Right.
and the spirit world can use that, all the different experiences and everything else. So that's pretty much where it brings me today. That's the mediumship aspect, and then obviously at the beginning of COVID 5 years ago, we did the studying to become grief recovery specialists, which is something that we always felt was very important with regard to mediumship and to working with people. And so we trained and did all the work, that the subsequent work of working on your own grief and understanding your losses, and and which is, I'm sure we'll go into and a little bit later, but the that I found has enhanced my mediumship again, and it's just constantly changing. I just don't appreciate it when I'm just about to get up to work and I hear in my head, it's going to be different this time. And I'm like, why do you do it? Why don't you give me a little bit of warning? But that's the way that it works, and I just roll with it. So yeah, with most things, I just go with the flow, um,
Beautiful.
and
Yeah.
see where the river bends.
Yeah. So beautiful journey. And I think a lot of people who do mediumship kind of have those awarenesses, throughout their whole lifetime. Like, and
Mhm.
it kind of comes about when you're ready. But we do have, I know, even in my own experience, I've been open to spirit since childhood, but and I'm still trying to contemplate it because some of it didn't seem like very good, and
Mhm.
experiences as well, though I knew, spirit was around and I seen them and I felt them, I could hear them breathing. I did live in a couple of houses that seemed to be what we call haunted.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if it was spirit trying to get my attention or if it was really haunted. I haven't really figured that part out yet, but it kind of
Hmm.
scared me and I kind of pushed it away, like a
Yeah.
lot of us do, because we don't
Yes.
really understand if we don't have the right upbringing, and people to support us in that, which I didn't. My family was, don't do that. They were religious. They were like, yeah, don't talk about
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so
And
I
a lot
didn't
of it's
really
fear.
develop.
Yeah. Well, as with most things in within human behavior, it's fear.
Hmm.
But I mean, for Catherine, growing up in that environment was incredible for her. I mean, her grandfather passed when she was 7, and she remembers him visiting her, waking her up, being woken up in the night, and she remembers seeing her granddad, and he was just sitting on the end of a bed, and he said, "I'm okay, Catherine. It's all right." And she was only 7. And then some hours later, she went back to sleep, and she knew that at that point that he passed. And her
Hmm.
mum came up to and woke her up and said that your granddad's passed. And she says, "I know he's been to visit me." Now, lots of children would have been told, in different circumstances, though, and been shut down and have that suppressed. But a mum, that was completely natural.
Mm,
So she went,
yes.
okay, well, that's good. Okay, well, I'm glad that he's been to see you. And so there's that having that acceptance. And for Kath, it was she already had the knowing. So whatever I said or expressed, it was fine. But I know subsequently that certain members of my mum's family, in particular, my grandmother, my mum's mum, she had a vision when she referred to it, she saw a light coming. She was in the kitchen and it was in the morning, and a light came in through the kitchen window, and she said that an angel came through and she knew at that point, she knew her 3-year-old son had passed upstairs, and there was nothing, he wasn't ill or anything, and she ran upstairs and he'd passed. So my uncle. So, but that was accepted within the family. But it's quite funny how, they go, me as a medium, I go, yeah, I said, I know. I said, you look at me as the rugby playing, fighting, this, that, and the other boy and man. I said, but that's the whole point of mediumship. I said, it's not restricted to one
Hmm.
type of people, male or female, whatever background you come from, however you feel as a person, whatever you think is the right way, whatever it's all about understanding who you are. And that's the biggest journey I found with mediumship. It's actually the more that I've understood and better appreciated who I am,
Hmm.
the more my mediumship has changed and the more relaxed. Um, Still doesn't stop me feeling sick as a dog before I work. But if I didn't have that, then maybe I'd be a little bit more worried. Um,
Right.
that I expect it. I expect to feel tired, sick, agitated, because as we refer to it in the UK, we say the quickening is happening. My vibration is raising, and
Hmm.
that changes. But for other people, it's different. So that's the great thing with having not only having the understanding that both Kathryn and I have, but both of us do. It's different.
Hmm.
The way that the preparation takes place is different for both of us. So when we work with students and that, we can say to them, look, there's no one way. It doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be that. But what you must do is test what your experience is, so
Right.
that you can actually say, yes, that works. Because lots of people say, oh, well, it works this way for me. Okay. And do you get it right every time? Well, it might be 50-50, or actually, when you go into it, it might even be like 60-40. I go, so you have to look at it and then go, why is it not a consistency to it?
Hmm.
And that's a big function of getting your fundamentals right. And
Yeah.
testing it. And I'm a firm believer. I don't just, some people tell me it's raining, I'll open the window and just check. But with all things, I need to check. I need to find out. That's why I burnt all my fingertips off. I didn't believe my mother when she told me the cooking ring was hot. And as a 3-year-old, I put my fingers on them, and I found
Yeah.
out that she was telling the truth. Uh,
You have to find out, evidence, right? So,
Yeah. And that's that thing of apply, as I've said to a lot of people over the years, apply common sense.
hmm.
Just because it's something that with your senses of today, you are not consciously aware of in this physical world, doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Mm.
It's just that your senses and awareness and understanding and what you're prepared, because what you're prepared to accept or acknowledge, as you intimated earlier, and with myself, putting it to one side. There may have been fear, there may have been, think people have said things. You shut it down, because you
Yeah.
want to fit in.
Right.
And that's the beauty of getting older, I found, as can't be bothered to fit in. Never done it anyway, so you might as well just go the whole hog and be who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I love that mediumship is different for everybody, but we always try to like compare ourselves to that person. Well, this isn't right because they're not doing it that way, or maybe I
Mm.
should be doing it this way, but it works with us with who we are, not we have to be fitting in with other people who are doing that too as well. So because my knowledge bank I found through working with mediumship and channeling is I have information that they can use to help me to bring it forward how it needs to be. And so somebody else would have for them, and spirit may work with another person versus me because they
Mm.
can explain it better than I can. I haven't had that
Yes,
experience. So I love
definitely.
that it's all unique, you know.
Yeah, and you think we're all individual, and
Mhm.
not, never mind the physical aspect, all aspects of our personality and who we are and how we deal with things. So, like I said earlier, with the working with Kathryn, when we work together, it actually opens up how and who the communicator can express aspects of themselves through. And because as well that to us it's not important, we're not in competition with each other.
Right.
We're there to support and give to each other, and if one has just got the information, then just let them go. If it's flowing and that's where then just let them go. The only caveat that I have to put in there is for Kathryn, it's always she wants to work first. She doesn't she does not like to wait. And over the years I've when I work with her, I'm like, okay, what we're doing, you just tell me what you're doing and I'll just fit in around it. But that suits me. I'm relaxed about. Well, I say I'm relaxed about it. Cass says she often turns around. I'm sitting with me head on me and my knees, going, "Oh God," So it's just, it's just, I do feel sorry for you sometimes. This is yes, but you don't change it, do you? Because I'm sure, as you know, that when you're working with your mediumship, when you're actually working with it, it's a relief to be able to express the information that you've got. Um, but we're also terrible at tearing everything apart
Mm.
and throwing everything out, rather than actually, okay, what was working, what wasn't, what went well, what didn't. But also the recipient, the person who you're communicating, pardon me, to. I always think that's where there should be so much training given, because people want, I want a pink box, which is 4 inches by 4 inches. Well,
Mm.
that's not the information that I've got. I've got all this other stuff, which is is absolutely spot on and right, but you still want that pink box that's 4 inches by 4 inches. And if the person communicating is like, well, I never did what they wanted when I was here, so I'm not going to start doing it now I'm in the spirit world.
Right.
You know, um,
Exactly.
and you've I remember one many years ago, yeah, 25 years plus, and giving this gentleman a contact in the church, and he said, "Well, if you can give me my mother's name, then I'll know it's her." And my whole energy completely changed, and basically, I tore strips off him. telling him, you never got what you wanted. Your mum never give you, never. She always gave you what you needed. Da, 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 and all this stuff. And there was this my mannerisms changed completely. And then she described her engagement ring. And the diamonds that had been lost on it, and what there was leaves that was on it, and this, that, and the other, and this that. Anyway, it's all right. Okay, okay, it's okay. All right, stop. I know it's my mum because the way that you changed and the way that you said things, that was my mum.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to change beyond the realm, as they are here, because that's part of it. It's like it helps them to let you know that's who they are.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
unfortunately, people don't bring forward the aspect of common sense.
Mhm.
If your Uncle Bob was terrible with money, why would you take um, a betting advice from him if he came back from the spirit world? Put it all on the 230. It's a winner. It's guaranteed. Yeah, that's how he lost everything.
Right.
He may have won lots and lots of money, but he also lost lots and lots of money as well.
Hmm.
And again, I remember somebody coming and wanting, and people don't necessarily think about who the communicator is and why that particular communicator is relevant to that communication. And a lady once said, "Well, I wanted my dad to come through, and this, that." Right, okay. I said, "But your sister's coming through." Yeah, but I want my dad because he's not recently passed. I said, right, well, there's a couple of things. He's got to learn how to do it. I said, we don't get a book and just have a quick flick through. Oh, okay, yeah, I've got this. He's got to learn. So your sister's wanting to show. I said, but the thing is, I said, you never spoke to your dad about your problems within your relationships. It was always your sister. And that's the primary reason why you've come for a sitting today, isn't it? She went, yes. I said, yeah. Well, they know. That's why your sister's come through first. Your dad will come through when the opportunity's there. And once the things are so, and oh, I had never thought of it like that. And that's the thing that people have a preconceived idea. And that's why I've always been test it, test it, test it.
Mm. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to, so that way they can understand that's who that is that you're speaking with. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm. Now you
Mm.
talked a little bit about Red Cloud, is that right? That's the
Yes.
name. Okay. Now
Yeah.
I didn't even know anything about Red Cloud until I took my lineage journey over to UK and did some traveling around, trying to look at my history, genetics and everything.
Yeah.
And I found Arthur Findlay College and
Yes.
studied their trance mediumship for 2 weeks. And I learned a lot, because what you guys do is very different than what I've experienced here in the United States, and how you go
Hmm.
about doing things like the sitting in the power,
Mm.
different methods, modalities, communication. And it was like, woof,
Yeah.
my awareness of everything just expanded, because like when you're living in the United States and you go out abroad to other places or other regions, it's a whole different way of thinking and different way of coming
Yeah.
at something. And it helps you to expand your awareness, if that makes sense. And so I learned about Red Cloud, and he came through in one of our channeling sessions, our little circles, and it was amazing. Um, and then we also learned about like sitting in circle, healing circles, different things like that.
Mm.
Um, Now with the channeling, do you do any, or the mediumship, do you do anything else with that as well?
I don't well, I've not worked with my trance properly. I have
Hmm.
gone into trance, but I've never actually worked, and I am aware and understand that ability is there. Whether I'll develop it or not, I did do it was a few years ago now. We did a workshop with trance mediums who we know very, very well. Um, and the one of the gentlemen who was working there, and he went, I came back, I was aware of saying things, but I wasn't aware of what I was saying, because that's the biggest problem with trance. It's actually letting the words go. Just let it go and don't be worried whether what people think. That needs to be expressed. And I had two wonderful experiences. And I'm very much of the, once I've had that wonderful experience, I'm fine. I'm quite relaxed. I don't necessarily need to delve any further because of what I do. And I just,
Hmm.
but there was words that were spoken. And afterwards, he said to me, he says, I know I was supposed to be working with somebody else. He says, but to hear the words and the way and the change, it was a completely different voice that came from you and this, that, and the other. And he said, why are you not working with this? I went, it's time. I know it's there. I'm aware. I said, but I just don't necessarily have the time, the inclination to do it.
Mm.
And I then, probably 15 years earlier, maybe more, me and Kath had once sat and at home, and we used to sit for trans to support Paul Jacobs in our home, and me and Kath were sitting, and I remember you know I knew something had been said, but I didn't know what had been said, and I knew that I had the person who was going to work with me. I knew um, aspects about them. And then the second aspect of sitting within this workshop, perfectly clear, just as though it's physically, I could see him, and he was an Arabian man sitting on the horse, and I remember just the words of, I said I would speak again to you, brother. And the emotion that came with that, it was absolutely, and I've always been somebody I'm quite happy to show and share my emotions. It's not been something that I hold back. But I came back from this, I've got tears flowing down my eyes. And the lady who was sitting opposite me, who was working with me in the sense as the battery, she was sitting in tears. She says, oh my God, I've never felt anything like that.
Mm.
She says that pure. I said, well, I was aware of this. It says, that's confirmed what I says. I saw him as well. I experienced what you experienced. And for me, that's the beauty of trance. Um, that there's there can be a purity to it, and it it touches us on that soul level that we will feel that connection. And I'd love to be able to stop being lazy and put the time in and do it. I've seen wonderful trance mediums, and I've experienced different things, but and also it's when the someone truly lets go and allows that trance, whether it's through transfiguration or whether it is to, because I've seen a wonderful trance medium lady called Jean Skinner, who's now in the spirit world. And Kathryn's grandmother came through, and we were in the library at the Longton Church. And it was absolutely incredible. You could
Mm.
see the mask form um, just about an inch from the face all across, and you could see the change and hear the change in her voice, and it was just like, wow. So, having experienced those things, I think the difficulty is nowadays is the lifestyles that we lead and the noise and the chatter
Hmm.
um, to get to a time of where the trance mediumship was more prevalent, we would probably have to go back lots of ways in the 1930s, 40s, 50s. There was probably more trance mediums. But interestingly enough, in Italy, that is the main way of the spirit world work.
Oh,
Is,
okay.
is trance mediumship. They don't necessarily have as much mental mediumship.
Hmm.
But you
Is
have
it
the
regionalized? Is that?
no, I believe it's all over. And it's the irony really that for
Yeah.
people, the Roman Catholic Church has persistently chased and criticized and punished mediums, trans mediums over many
Mm,
years. But they have their own trans mediums in the Vatican.
mm, right,
The irony,
right.
you know.
Yeah, they can do it, but we can't.
Yeah, and but there are lots of people who believe that their religion is the right. I remember a Sikh gentleman telling me, so you shouldn't be doing that. You're not communicating. When I worked on the steelworks, and I'm like, well, I can only go on what I've experienced. You haven't experienced what I've experienced,
Hmm.
and that's the way that I approach everything. And also with my people who are students of mine, what your experience is what matters. You have to feel when you're getting it right, when you're getting it wrong. Sometimes somebody will say yes to you, and then inside you're going, no, it's not right. It's not you. This is not right.
Hmm.
It's for someone else. Which becomes more, it can be a bit more difficult, obviously, when you're working online because you can't physically, you're not in the same room, but that feeling and that connection is still there.
Yeah. 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 And I kind of going into it, I had a fear of doing like the trance mediumship because, letting go and then letting somebody, but like sitting in the circle, I could, like you said, I could see like when we were watching, it was like a little circle of like five, they broke us up into, and then the person would be doing the trance and we would sit around and take notes of what we're observing and watching
Mm.
and getting the evidence from writing down the information. And you could see who they were bringing through, literally, like they were sitting there in front of
Mm.
you. And it was really interesting. And then the voice changed and they kind of morphed. And, I did a little bit of it. And then because I had to come back to the USA and I couldn't get to where I could get a job and stay there and practice,
Yeah.
continue, my journey. COVID came in and that kind of
Mm.
ruined it all because I was doing it online, staying with the spiritualist church, practicing. But then COVID kind of put an end to that, because everything was kind of shut down and chaos. But yeah, but I do a little bit of mediumship. I don't do trance as much, don't have that opportunity though. Would love it to get back into that again as well. But I guess at some point the journey will continue. It's kind of like finding time in life now, to
Mm.
get that done. But definitely,
Yeah,
uh,
you end up being pulled in different directions, and and this is the problem, that there's so many ways and avenues that we could explore and diversify into, and then it's like, well, where do you want to work and specialize,
mhm.
and that's why, though I've often been criticized by many mediums who I know, they say, well, you should do more, you should do more, and I'm like, yeah, well, it's same with Kathryn, that when we work together a lot, demonstrating. And one of the things that we enjoy doing is actually, we'll do a demonstration, what we call an evening with a difference. And we will do things that we would have done in development circles. So we will, also show people the difference of working psychically, using psychometry, using color, the
Mhm.
aura, and going into and explaining that, working blind, which to be honest I'd much rather do, because you just concentrate on what you've got rather than waiting for somebody to respond to you, and you're going, come on, come on, come on. And then they go, well, yeah. And you're like, oh my God, I'd rather cut a finger off. I get more, and it's torturous, the responses. And then you get other people who just want to give you the whole life story. No, you give me that. I can't give you the information that I've got. And it's
Hmm.
about me and I know very much in the UK, the tutelage that I had with Paul Jacobs, it's about you have to prove with the evidence that you have the communicator there.
Hmm.
And that person can feel that presence and that it changes them. It moves you as a medium because you can get similar information on the psychic level, and often, you have, I know you have people talk about cold reading and this, that, and the other. Put me in the door in the house next door, and I'll work with whoever. I personally don't have any issue and what have an interest in and read a lot of old spiritualist books because of the investigations that took place, when the first awareness and understanding and things. So you're talking the 1840s to the 18 sort of like 90s, that great investigation of how the information's coming, how, the where and how testing mediums and finding. And that's what we do when we do an evening with different. We show people a different way so they can actually understand how the medium's working. But unfortunately, that can lead to a lot of disappointment for people because they are told that, oh, well, they're telling me this and they're telling me that. Oh, okay. So you're clairaudient. Well, not really. So why are you saying they're telling me when they're not? That's
Right.
something that myself and Kathryn, it's if we like mark each other's work. Oh, okay. I mean, she said because it's not very rare when I say, and what I'm hearing or what I'm being told is, and it says, and her ears prick up. And she's like, oh, right, okay, you better get this right, sunshine. Else I'll be kicking your backside when we get that. And every time that I have heard it, I've expressed it, and I know it's right because that's the way that I and my mediumship works.
Hmm.
I know when it's right. I have clear knowing, which is far more prevalent than my clairaudience, but I'm predominantly clairvoyant. And clairsentient is the thread that just stitches everything together.
Hmm.
So for me, that's so important, the clairsentient. And you will often get lots of students that say, well, I don't see anything or I don't hear anything, right? But I just feel this. And I said, how wonderful. If you trust and you build that trust within yourself, within the team that work with you,
Hmm.
that you will express what they give you, what you're aware of, and you're aware that there's a change within your soul and within your sensitivity. And then that's not me. And then whether it's the person who you're communicating to or you're getting the information from. I said, and that will put you aside from more than half of the mediums, and I use the term loosely, who are professing to be medium.
Hmm.
Because so many people, they don't actually go and test it. They don't actually understand the difference, and they'll say, I'm getting this from the spirit world." No, you're not, because there's no spirit communicator there. You bet sometimes you're guessing. And many students I've worked with, they say, "Well, I can't do it." No, all it is, I said, you've got the communicator there. I'm aware of the communicator who's working with you. I said, and they've given you the information, and all it is you just got to just tilt it slightly. You expressed it this way, but actually, what I feel with it is this. And the person goes, "Oh, yeah, 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 I get that." Well, that's nearly, I said, yeah, it's nearly the same. I said, and that's one of the things of working as a medium. The recipient has a fixed way of thinking. Sometimes you can express it in one way and they'll go, no. And you change it ever so slightly. And everybody else in the room's thinking, that's what he said before. And the person going, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the difficulty. It's not the medium, it's the recipient, but also the communicator. How good of a communicator were they when they were here? You know,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's people, it's that application of common sense and reason.
Right.
And
We have to
um,
have the reasoning. And I think you bring up a lot of good points. It's not just, the person given the reading and that, because if you're not in alignment with the person communicating from their side, this person that's reading, and then the sitter, you have to have all that in consideration and evidence. Like the sitter has to know what abilities they have, how they're using it, how they're connecting, and I learned that through Arthur Finley in my practice. Am I seeing, am I hearing, am I feeling, how am I connecting, how are they connecting with me? And then what is information that they're trying to get through that the sitter is allowing to receive. So
yeah,
it's multidimensional, I think, in that reality when you're having a reading in that situation. But definitely, and I don't think that, for me anyway, I've had experiences with knowing, with vision, with feeling, they've played with my emotions.
mm,
I had one spirit that came in and made me laugh and laugh and laugh, and then made me cry and cry and cry. And I'm like, stop playing with my emotions,
mm,
and they're like, well, we're trying to help you understand. And it was really an eye-opening experience that they can work with your emotional system, your cognizance, and your hearing, and all your senses. It's
yeah.
you just being open to it,
And
and
also all your life experiences,
mhm.
your relationships, the work that you've done. I mean, the the strange thing is that like I often refer to Kathryn because she's done well, as have I done lots of different things. So I said, when you come back as a communication, I said, which aspect of your life do you want to bring back? Because now we no longer have people who work in the same role for 40, 50 years. People's changing of jobs. And I said, so I can come back at one time, I could come back in my overalls that I worked on the steelworks for 10 years. I ran an international company. So I've been suited and booted. I'm self-employed now and I renovate properties. So there's all these different things and different jobs. I worked in shop selling menswear, uh, so varied. But that means then that you've got all these different aspects. If I come back, I come back as one thing or another. But Kathryn, more recently, she was a hairdresser when she first started her first work. She worked as an advocate to support people. She worked in social care with young adults with very challenging behaviour. And then she went to work for the council to work in social work, but also assessments and safeguarding and all of this type of work. And now her main volume of her work, her main focus for the last 9 years, is that she's been working as a funeral celebrant and also a wedding celebrant. So taking funerals and and all that eulogies and everything. So the spirit world will use all of those different things at different times. Sometimes they go into great detail. If the hair mattered to them, they can refer and reference hairstyles, terminology, because that's fine. Cass, like, yeah, yeah, I understand that.
Mhm.
But also, if it's a social care setting or somebody, and the spirit world will use whatever they can. That's because of that sheer intelligence that what we see, the physical outline of somebody that we see, we don't understand because of our physical teaching and understanding what the person is. This vehicle, this shell. If I present myself and my day to day been working on a building site or been knocking the your lumps off and I've got dust and muck all over my face, and I turn up at somebody's house with wear him in overalls until they go, oh, that's who he is. The next time they might see me, I might be in a suit all freshly spruced up and everything. They go, oh my God, I didn't recognize you. I didn't realize it was you at first. Because we categorize people too quickly, too
Mm.
early. And that's one of the personal philosophies is not what people say, it's what people do.
Right. And I can see where that's helpful because we have the different hats that we wear. Now, if a
Mm,
person that you work with only knows you from work, they're not going to know
mm,
your personal life or your story. So if they go for a reading and you come in and show yourself as that person from as the worker, then they'll know who you are, not your who you were,
yeah.
as your whole being. And so they only show you bits and pieces of what to make you understand the connection.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, we've often said an explanation to students like that you could have one communicator and have a room full of lots of, say, and have eight different people in there. And for an hour, you could give that communication to each of those eight different people who knew them
hmm,
in different settings. And each time it would be different in the vast majority of cases. There may be overlap in certain areas, but that's that thing of it's unfortunately the way that the brain works, and this is the problem that of going from where your soul is operating to where your brain. And I so often refer to this is where communication goes to die. Because once the brain gets involved in what's going on, it likes to sort things out and it likes to organize and it all needs to be all nicely stacked up and organized. But what the soul feels, that's the true communication. The brain is just organizing. That's the engine management of the vehicle that we're driving. But it's not the person that's actually behind the wheel driving it. And that's your soul. Your soul is the one that decides the direction.
yeah.
And for so many people, they get lost in the thinking, and you will hear it when they work with their mediumship. And this is one of the things we were taught very early on by Paul. Listen to the terminology that people use when they are expressing what they are aware of. And you will hear people say, well, what they're showing me, what I'm seeing, what I'm aware of, what I feel, what I hear. And then sometimes say, I know. And if they say what I hear or they're telling me, if you're truly hearing something from the spirit world clairaudiently, that can't be wrong. It's not possible. Because if you're hearing them, they're telling you. And lots of people try and make out that that's the way that they get at all their information. And it's not.
Mhm.
Because if you feel something, you can get it wrong. If you're feeling within your soul, well, it feels this way, I'm aware of this. And then somebody might go, no, and go, okay. So I just reflect on that. Why? But lightly, it's like holding the way I've often referred to it, it's like holding a little bird in your hands. You want to hold it, but you don't want to damage it. And if you hold it too tightly, it restricts and you can feel it doesn't sit right. But if
Mhm.
it's held gently and there's a little bit of space for it to move about, it relaxes and becomes comfortable. And that's what you're looking to do with your mediumship, to be relaxed and to be comfortable, not stressed to the hilt. For me, that comes beforehand. The worry, oh, I wonder how this lot's going to go because you never know.
Right.
But when I'm actually working, total, yeah, okay. I trust it. I know you guys. I know you're here. I know that I've done everything that in my preparation that I need to do. I trust you. Whatever you give me. And sometimes they throw me right curveballs. And I go, okay, thank you very much. Here we go. What I'm being shown is this, and people, and how did you? But then the relevant person, because it's so sometimes so left field, and people go, yeah, 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 no, I understand that. Like, yeah, that's right, because they're the only one person that can understand it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's what you always want to get to is you have a room full. I've demonstrated rooms full of hundreds of people and been able to go to a person, direct to a person, because
Mm.
that's what the spirit world wanted to do. And I've asked, can we work this way? And so many people don't communicate with the spirit world, their team, who they're working with. They're like, oh, frightened to death. Or want it an A, B, C, D, E, F, and go work the way through the alphabet. And I believe you can start at G and you can flick along to R and and then you might go T and then hang on a minute, we're getting back to C now, and the more relaxed you are, the more it will flow rather than going. I have a man, and the one that we always say is height. I don't know whether it's something that's a particular thing in America or not, but in the UK we have a lot of people that will sometimes they focus on the physical,
Mm.
and we've done it as well actually the room I'm clearing the loft out. I've got my motorbike helmet's just by the side of me, and what we used to do with the students is put it on the head. So right now the person's going to stand behind you and they're going to tell you who they are. Okay. And they're going to talk to you. But you've got the motorbike helmet on. So you can't always quite get everything quite right because you've got all the foam in there. And this is a bit working like on a clairaudient aspect that sometimes it doesn't quite come through clearly. And this guy and his wife was in the rest of the class. We used to have a class of about between 15 and 20 people. And Steve says, I mean, this is like 27 years ago, but I can remember it so clearly. And he went, I said, now explain who you are. What? I want you to explain who you are to the medium, and they therefore to express who you are. So you can understand what it's like to be in the spirit world trying to express through you as a medium of how it works. Oh, okay. Uh, Steve, my name's Steve. So they so his name just Steve. And I went, hang on, no, especially as you would as you're working. Does anybody here understand somebody by the name of Steve? I said, everybody who understands Steve, because you should all put your hand up. Oh, yeah. I said, because that's nothing special.
Right.
Steve. Okay. So there we get the name. Um, and he went, oh God. Oh, husband. Sorry. And see, I can't quite hear. So I've got to speak up. I said, yeah. And, you think if you have a quiet communicator, they've got to learn. They might not necessarily be as forceful in giving that information. Husband. Right. Okay. So what do you want to say? So who understands Steve and husband in the spirit world? So of course his wife, Margaret, she put her hand up. Right. Um, Now, what else? Now, bear in mind, he's given his name and he's given his relationship. Great. What else? Ooh, I'm 5'10". Tell me, says he's telling me he's 5'10". His wife goes, no, I am. I said, hang on. I said, you can't say anything. I said, you're in the spirit world. He's not. He's 5'9". I said, and therein is the evidence that proves that people will kill you for an inch. Her perception is 5'9". He understands he's 5'10". Two different perceptions. I said, and that is a classic. I said, that's why I don't give a physical description. I don't worry about why do I need to worry about some of these? Because that's not what matters when somebody
Mm.
returns. It's who they are and who they are to you
Mm,
and what they meant to you. That's what matters, not the
beautiful.
physical, not the physical aspect of, unless they were, I said, 7 foot or, what I mean, something that was outstanding, or they got huge hands, or, you know, the particular, the physical things that make as if they've lost something, particular limbs, and which you can be very much aware of. Sometimes it'd be like, I go, oh, okay. So they would have lost a finger. Yes. And it would have been on the left hand. Yes. I said it would have been the little finger. Yes. That's right. Yes. Okay. Right. Fine. That's thing. Now, what I've done there for those who are working with the mediumship, I could have gone straight in. Oh, you'd understand a man who's lost his little finger on his left hand. And I've got yes once. But actually getting yes 3 times, I've built that person's confidence. I've built the energy that I'm working with. And that's a massive thing that a lot of people don't understand, how to manipulate the energy, whether it be in a room or within a demonstration, whether your use of your natural personality or a sense of humor, the sense of humor from the communicator, you know.
Mm,
And if you've had communication, if you're doing an hour's demonstration, for example, and you've had 3 maybe sensitive emotional contacts that sometimes, right, we need to change the energy, and I'm just consciously going, please give me somebody else who's different personality, whether it's going to be humor or there's an energy, and that's what you'll get because you've asked for it, because you're working with an intelligence. They're not servants to you, they're working with you.
mm,
They're your colleagues. They want to get the best possible for you and the communicator and the recipients, all to have got positive from it.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's important. I think they do push that here in the United States, get their height, their weight, all the physical details. But I feel like you said, it can like set you up for a trap for them to be like, no, no, that's not them, and then they move
Yeah,
on. You know what I mean? And so
yeah,
it's like it kind of destroys the purpose of the
yeah.
reading in the first place.
And
So,
you'll get body snatchers as well, as we
mhm,
refer to them in the UK. They go, yeah, 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 yeah. And then, and I've seen so many times, and the mediums go, oh, okay. And then about 3 or 4 yeses, and they start going, no, 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 no. And everything just drags, the energy comes down, and the medium comes out of the power.
mhm,
And the whole, and they're like, oh, well, they weren't very good. Well, you didn't help it either, did you?
mhm,
And, fortunately, with the training that we had and our own experiences, you know, as I'm working, somebody might say, "Oh, well, I understand that if I've thrown it open, because I do try to go direct wherever possible." And lots of people say, "Oh, well, you're working psychic." Oh, okay. Well, I just ask in a room when you're physically standing in front of people. I said, it's as far better to say, "Well, right, I feel as though I'm in this area. Someone there must understand X, Y, and Z. That is relevant information. Where his dad who passed with a heart attack, and he worked as a mechanic." Okay, so it'll give you 3 pieces of information. Within that area, there was half a dozen people. I know exactly who the person's going to be, but to remove that aspect of, oh, you're just tuning into that person, you're getting the information from them. Well, that's why under those circumstances, the spirit world will give you things that they don't know. They've never known. They have to go and qualify with somebody else.
mhm.
That's the intelligence of what you're working with.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's always that thing to look for.
Mm-hmm. I've had a reading where they booked a half hour. They had a lot of questions. They wanted to connect with their brother. And in that, I was like, well, which direction do you want to go? They either wanted a psychic reading, a mediumship, or what do you want? Because they had a lot
Mm.
of things that they wanted within a short period of time. I'm like, so the best thing that spirit was, the message was for the brother came in and said, have her just learn to connect. So I explained the whole process on how to get her to learn how to connect for herself since she was going on the spiritual journey and they
Yeah.
wanted her to start learning, and learning and developing her abilities. And so she wasn't happy with the response that she got, from spirit. And he said, well, she's stubborn, so she's never going to get it anyway. I
Yeah, that's all right for them, isn't it? You got delivery.
was like,
Yeah.
okay. So,
Yeah, it's that thing of people want things and so many in a particular way and this, that, and the other. And what that's just flip back and because there's always, I mean, for me, like 30 years now that I've been working with my mediumship and development and actually 28 years uh, actually demonstrating and working on a professional basis as well. Um, but there are always certain things that stick with you. And I remember working in Switzerland, and there was a woman, young woman, in her 30s, and she brought her mum in with her. And I was working with a translator, um, and I was aware of this gentleman, and I knew it was the young woman's father, and I knew it was husband to the lady. And the young lady had paid for the sitting, and we were about 10, 15 minutes in. And the translator said to me, she's just said that, she was the person who paid for the sitting and she would like to have more information. And the way it came back from the father was, my wife has always been my queen. She may be my princess, but my wife is my queen. I always spoke to my wife first whenever I came through the door.
well,
And I put it in those terms to it, and she knew by the tone and the expression, and then the translator, and she went, sorry, to her father. And that gentleman is the only time in all the years that I've worked, and this is why this particular one stays with me, because the way they referred to his wife um, and he asked her why she wasn't wearing a particular ring that he bought that got all these clusters of diamonds, a massive thing, rock thing, because she actually took it out of a bag afterwards and showed me. I went, yeah, that's what I saw. But he's the only person who's actually shown me how he passed. And it was, again, because I'm predominantly clairvoyant, this image,
mhm.
I could see. I said, I knew this gentleman had got light tan chino trousers on, boating pumps, and he was on a steamer deck chair, and he got a blue shirt on. I said he sat down, and all I'm seeing basically from through his eyes what he saw because I can see the body, I can see the body, I can see the hands. He picked up this big full sheet, broadsheet paper. I said he opened it and he passed straight away with a heart attack. And they were like,
Um,
oh my God. And I knew I didn't have to question it. I just knew because the communication was that strong and the connection was that strong. And that's that other thing of understanding for people developing mediumship, but also for people who are working with it. There are some people say, oh, well, it's always the same. No, it's every single time it's different. And every communication is different. And the people who resonate with you They will bring up things of your personality that you can use, or they'll reference someone else. Because I'm I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm a friend, I'm I'm a dad, I'm a granddad.
Mhm.
So, and there's different aspects because sometimes they can reference a feeling and an emotion within you, and you go, well, that's not how I'd respond. But you understand the fact that your response is this, but this is how they respond in that type of situation. And that's what you navigate with. Just because something doesn't feel the way that you would, therefore, why? And this is this thing constantly asking, why? Why? And I've that's it's about not accepting. Um, I suppose it's okay. It's not accepting okay is good enough.
Mhm.
It's never good enough. Any medium who is worth their salt, it doesn't matter how wonderful the communication's gone, you'll still find that one thing that you got wrong or you didn't utilize it fully enough, and you'll kick yourself. God, I should have done this. I should have. So that's I found quite normal and quite prevalent that in the individual thoughts, they go around, we kick ourselves all the way around the park. And then we get halfway around the park, and then we go, well, yeah, okay, that was a nice bit, and I remember how that came in, and that how that followed that. God, that intelligence, aren't they incredible? And you start then to build yourself back again, and that's the human nature part of it,
Mhm.
that we
Yeah.
can destroy so much, but it's important that we rebuild it as well.
Right.
After
It's
life.
like it's kind of like scientific, not just evidence, but it's like, how science, okay, they kind of take things apart and they analyze
Yeah,
it. They don't just accept, this is it.
yeah.
They investigate, they look at it and they question it and they do different experiments on it. And so that's how they come to their conclusion and understanding. So that's the same way with mediumship and any other psychic work or healing modalities, whatever the case may be.
Mm.
So with people wanting to get into the like either mediumship or developing their abilities, finding out what is, their way of communicating, what do you suggest where they start at? Is it like sitting in the power or meditating? What is the best route, do you feel?
I would say, for me, um, I know a lot of people, and there's a lot of work done on meditation. I'm not good at meditation. I've throughout my life, I have been more of a high energy,
Mm.
and then like hit the wall and slide down it, and then recharge, and then woof, off we go again. So that's so meditation. Though having said that, I enjoy taking people through a guided meditation because I live it.
Mm.
I can live it in that way, and I experience it, and I visualize it in that connection. So that's the way meditation if is good way to just, in one sense, it's about finding what fits right for you. If you find that meditation is useful and helpful, it doesn't have to be for incredibly long times. Because it's just sometimes if you're having a particular stressful, bad, difficult day, trying to meditate might be just enough of that break between day to day and what you're trying to attain. I personally believe and have seen great results and with people and love nothing more sitting in the power, to actually sit and to feel and to, whether it's a guided exercise or whether it's personally finding your own way of what you feels right. But it's all about that consciously, about getting that breathing right and about breathing in that energy. and expanding it. Because if you're going to work with the spirit world, you don't want to slow, particularly if you're going to work with mental mediumship. Trance is different, but to work with mental mediumship, you need to quicken
Mm.
because you've got to raise your vibration. So the way I've explained it many times, if they're at 100 and we're standard as at 50, we need to quicken. We need to gain up. Let's meet them halfway. Let's not expect them to solve everything and come down to us. Let's meet them halfway. So we're around about, if we can stay in that between 70 and 80 band, and as long as possible, that there's a little bit of effort more from them. Maybe when we dip a little bit to 70 and we can really get up to 80 and develop that. So building and sitting in the power and doing the guided exercises. We often with our students used to take them through, and sometimes we'd use music, sometimes we wouldn't. But now I'm because I'm that long down the road now. I mean, it's a click of the switch. Consciously, I need to make that okay. But also it's understanding the different levels. And the longer you sit and build in the power and you sit within your power and your own energy, and you actually build that energy source, and you're actually strengthening that connection with those that work with you. So your spirit guides and helpers, whether they be long term or short term. So the more power and energy that you have and can generate, the more you can you sustain yourself when you're working with your mediumship, and you don't need to draw upon others. When I said earlier, reference that manipulation of the power,
Mm.
personal power, but also the power and energy if you're working with a group of people or you're working in your own circle, to draw upon what everybody else has. And to utilize that and to help that, or the residual energy that's within a building. But it's learning to feel and sense all these different things. We all do it. We walk into a room and we feel the atmosphere and go, ooh, but then we dismiss that. Oh no, it's just me. It's, you're aware. And people, yeah, but the expectation is it's going to be something wow and incredible. Why? You can't put all that effort. It's a bit like a space rocket, isn't it? It takes all that effort to get it off the ground, but then when it's in space, you just want little bursts and just an alteration. We don't want to be just thrusting and full bore and all this energy. So the spiritual can't keep giving and giving and giving, because you need to learn how to develop. So your own development of your own power, your own energy, to sit within that, to sit with the spirit world. And actually, that gives you a wonderful peace. And if that means that sometimes you go to sleep, fine. It doesn't matter. You haven't got, I've got to be aware of it. No, that's fine. Sometimes it might be that's what you actually need. A little nod off for 5 minutes. That'll revitalize you for your day. But actually sitting within that power, as long as you can develop and start to feel that presence. Is it a man? Is it a lady? And we break that down. This is still the fundamentals that I was taught 30 years ago. Can I feel a presence? Yes. Is it a man? Is it a lady? It's a man. Okay. How does it feel? Does it feel? What's the relationship? Now, not thinking what's the relationship, feeling. So it's about getting that instantaneous rhythm of working with your mediumship, and then going with and then testing. And then sometimes you hear people say, well, I think this. If you think and it's a no, then you know it's your brain.
Mm.
So if you feel it, you could be wrong, but you might have just misinterpreted it. Just saying that little bit of an adjustment, because sometimes, for example, you may say, the word may come father. Why is it that I've come with father rather than dad? These are the things. These are the little things that are triggering off in me as I'm working. Oh, okay. I'm referring to your father. Now, you would understand your father, but you would understand that relationship was one more of he was paternal, he was protective, he was that. Whereas, for someone else, maybe I've got dad, and your dad, dad's a bit softer, and and there's this different aspect that might come with that. Or you might have a separate father and a separate dad. You might have, someone who was not biologically your father, but was your dad. And those are the basics. That really is just that feeling and getting them to come close, and not. And another exercise to actually, I mean, this is if you have other people around you. It's one that we've done with all our students as part of the introduction. We used to get them to sit on a chair and then get somebody out, if there was half a dozen people, to actually walk. So they wouldn't know who was coming up behind them. So go over carpet, so you can't see the footsteps, so you can't tell whether it's a man or a woman or heavy or not. And get them to stop about 3 foot away, and then say, can you feel yes or no? Okay. Yes. Right. One step closer. So they're about 2 foot away. To then feel into whether it's a man or a woman, and then they can feel that difference on a psychic level, to then also working with the spirit world and feel that difference. And that helps to build confidence. So actually just that fundamental of, man or a woman, I'm working on the psychic level, I'm aware of a communicator. What do I feel? And you're sitting in the power, particularly in the beginning, I would say, is a fundamental. If you can, do it every day, because you're trying to build that energy. You want to build it up, and up. So I would say that is the fundamental cornerstone of actually, because the more energy you've got and the more power you have within your mediumship and your connection, the stronger your connection, the better, for want of a better expression, the better your connection and your evidence can be, because you'll feel that presence. And when you feel that presence, and I'm working with the spirit world, I have to trust. And then comes the most difficult part, and this is what separates people. You have to surrender to that power. If you don't surrender, you will always find you have a ceiling of where you can go. And I remember the moment that I surrendered. It was over 28 years ago. And I broke down. And that moment, I then said, I will trust whatever you give me, and I know that it's coming to you. I will give that information. And as far as I understand to this day, I have never broken that, because they have given me some ridiculously weird things. And I've gone, oh God, what did I say? Okay, I'll give it. Sometimes question my own sanity, but it's about trust, building a trust, surrendering to that power, and saying, I'm going to give it. And don't be afraid to get it wrong. That's how we learn. Because you'll know that feeling, whether it felt right or whether it felt wrong. But then you'll also know, no, it's right. That the person is either saying no because there's a difficulty on their part, that they can't acknowledge it or not able to, dependent on the setting, whether it's a private sitting or whether it's on a public demonstration, or you're not with the right person. I experienced that right at I was 3 months of working as a medium, did a public demonstration. There's about 120 people in this. It was a hotel that we were working at. It was to raise awareness about the church in different parts of the city. And this gentleman, it was my second contact, and this information. I gave him this information about where I said I'm aware that it's Mormon, and this, that, and the other, da 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 da. And he was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he went, no, no, no. I'm like, no, it's right. So I had to then go, okay, well, let that go. And I got to then do more communication. And I had to do 2 more contacts. And I fought with inside me. I'm getting, oh my God, I've had to let this go. Doubt is like banging and hammering at the doors. And I got through these other 2 contacts. I went to the people, the information. As I sat down I said to the medium getting up, I'm sorry about that. Because I was absolutely gutted. I was devastated. It's nearly 30 years ago this happened. And it's still there now. I can see it. But this is how the spirit world works. If it's right and it's what you should do, the next night was the night that I surrendered to that power, going to another demonstration, which was my 6th demonstration on the one day after another. I'd started, I was like, yeah, I was accepting everything, ridiculous. And then I was traveling to work in Switzerland with Paul on the day after that surrender. Some 2 weeks later, the lady who got up after me wasn't able to do this private sitting. She says, could you go to the church and do the sitting? Oh, okay. So I went to open the church, went to open the door, and it was that gentleman. And I said, you probably won't want me to do the sitting. And he went, well, actually, I need to apologize. You were right. Everything that you said was right. It was me mum. We do live in between 2 little hamlets. There's our house and there's next door, and then you have to go like hundreds and hundreds of yards either side for more houses. And that's what you described where my mum lived in. This thing, you said a personality, and that was right. He says, but I fell out with me mum and I went to work, and when I came back she passed, and I was frightened that she was going to come and tell me off. Oh, okay. Right. So that was a lesson for me, that as the medium, sometimes you've got to take on, you've got to deal with whatever is for that person's personal situation. But this particular person also happened to be a healer at another spiritualist church. And he did that to somebody working with mediumship. So it's not always you as the medium. People with their own issues and problems can make you question your mediumship.
Right.
So that's why it's important, that fundamental, to build your power, your focus, to trust and find out, know that you are in touch with it. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, know that you're in touch with the spirit world, because you feel it and you're aware that the communication is coming through the soul, not through this wooden block up top.
Let's talk about death, baby. Let's talk about you and me. We're not the one and only. It's going to happen to everybody. Yeah, baby. Say it isn't so, baby. It's the truth, don't you know, baby?